Alright, YouTube. I'm starting a series on FreeNAS and using it as a storage server. This is the topology that we're going to be setting up. I've got my internet connection coming into my VMware host, and then we'll be creating a FreeNAS 1 alpha and a FreeNAS 2 delta. It'll have 3 network interfaces cards on it, one for management. We'll manage it from the host here, the white section. The data would be like shares that it has or iSCSI connections that different machines can use. And then it'll have a replication link that'll replicate to FreeNAS 02. And go ahead and get started setting up FreeNAS 1 and 2. I've got VMware Workstation on here that we'll be using. I've already downloaded a copy of FreeNAS, so we'll start a new machine. It's got my FreeNAS ISO that I'll be using. I got it right off the website. You can go download it too. I'll name this one FreeNAS 01 1-A for alpha. Put it somewhere else. VDI folder. New folder. FreeNAS 1-A. Give it 100 gigs for the disk size. Put them as a single file. I just prefer to do it this way. We do need to customize the hardware. FreeNAS wants you to give it 8 gigs of RAM to start off with. I'm only going to give mine 4 because we're not going to actually give it terabytes of storage or anything like that. You would want to give it the 8 gigs if you have a terabyte of storage or more. I'll give it 2 processors, cores. This is fine. This will be fine for at first. Eventually we'll come back and add some different network interfaces cards. I am going to use the VMnet 0 that I've set up. Let's go take a look at that. VMware gives you a virtual network editor. So in here I've created 3 networks. There's going to be the internet connection. If you go back to the desktop, you've got your internet connection, your data connection, and your replication connection. So if we go back to this, you got your internet connection, your data connection, and your replication connection with all the correct addressing. So we're going to give him just the internet one for now. That'll be fine. We'll add the others later. All these other things are fine. Close that. Power them on. Press enter to boot, otherwise it would auto boot. We're going to install. That's okay, I understand. Give it the 100 gigabyte drive. I'm going to proceed with the installation. My password is going to be TOOR. Boot via the BIOS. The default username is root, by the way. It'll be root and then TOOR for the password. So by the end of this video, we'll have FreeNAS 01 and FreeNAS 02 set up. We're not going to set up the VDI in this, the testing VDI in this video. Just do the FreeNAS 1 and 2, get all the NICs set up. We'll add the storage hard drives in there. We won't configure them yet though. FreeNAS is done installing, press OK. I'm actually going to shut it down to remove the ISO from it. Sometimes you gotta press Control and Alt to get your mouse cursor from the VMware back. So this, we're gonna uncheck connect to power on, press OK, power it back on. Just press enter to skip the auto boot. Save you 3 seconds in your life. It's doing DHCP right there. Set it. See that it's set up on the NATed interface. So there we go. It's all booted up. It's been given the address .31 on the 192.168.30 network. So let's go back and look at the desktop. This first host needs to be given 128 though, not 130. So we'll go back. I'm going to do number 1, configure network interfaces, press enter. Select the interface, we've only got one right now, so it's nice and easy. Press number 1, press enter. I don't need to reset it. It is going to be configured for DHCP. The interface name is going to be management in GT. I don't care about IP6. So press OK. And I actually didn't mean to do DHCP on there. So I'm going to press number 1. We don't need to delete the interface. Don't need to reset it. I do need to configure it for IP version 4. The name is still going to be management. The address 192.168.30.128. net mask will be a 24-bit net mask. It says that you're allowed to do just 24. Otherwise, you'd have to write out the 255, 255, 255, 0. We don't need IP6 still. It's restarting the network interface. While it's doing that, I'm going to come over here to the Windows command prompt. Do a ping 192.168.30.128-T. So that should be the FreeNAS box replying back to us there. That's great. Minimize that for now, we'll need it later. Looks like it's done. I'm going to press 11 to shut it down because we're going to clone it for the FreeNAS 02 Delta. Shut down. Come over here to FreeNAS 01. Do a right click on it. Go to Manage. Clone. Press Next. The current state of the machine is shut off. There's nothing running in memory, so we're going to press Next. I'm going to create a full clone. I don't want it to be linked. The virtual machine name, FreeNAS 02-D for Delta. I don't want to store it there. I like to put it on the VDI drive that I have. Yours will be different. Create a new folder, FreeNAS 02-Delta. Press OK. Finish. It's cloning it. Save yourself a lot of time using the clone feature. It's done. It goes ahead and opens it in a new tab. We're actually going to go back and, well, I do need to. We're going to go work with FreeNAS 01 first. I actually do need to add a couple of hardware items to it. We're going to give it a second network interface adapter. Let's go to Add a network adapter. I'm going to use my custom ones. VMnet1 will be used for the data network. So we'll press Finish, press OK, and power it back on. I like to do these one at a time because the console interface here sometimes orders the NICs differently than they're ordered in VMware, and it can get really confusing, and you'll end up assigning the wrong address to the wrong NIC, and then it won't work, and you'll wonder why, so I just do them one at a time. I'm sure there's some other way to use a terminal on here to figure out which one's the right one, and maybe somebody out there knows that. Put it in the comments if you do. Everybody will appreciate you. While it's working on that, we can come over here to FreeNAS 02. We need to add a second interface to that as well. So we can go to Add, Network Adapter, Next, Custom, Data Network, Finish. Okay, power it on as well. Wait for that one to boot up while we're waiting for a 1 to boot up. We'll start referring to them as alpha and delta instead of a 1 and 02. Looks like it's finished booting up. We've got the correct address on the management interface still. I'm going to go to number 1 for configure network interfaces. You can see we've got a second NIC in there. We know that EM0 is the management, so I'm going to go to number 2. I don't need to reset it. Don't need to configure it for DHCP. We do need to configure IP version 4, so press yes. Interface name is going to be data. We need to configure the IP version 4 address. So if we go back to my topology, the data network is going to have 172.16.30.128 as well. So go back to FreeNAS 01. Looks like it got a little bit of information there. Just pressed enter and it's going to say invalid, but it's now going to let me type in the IP version 4 address, so 172.16.30.128 is correct. It's a 24-bit network. Don't need IP6. It's going to restart that network interface. Come over here to the command prompt that we got going. Take out the 8 there. Change this 9 to a 7. You got 172.16.30.128. Ping it, and it's replying from this box we just configured. Stop that, minimize that, we'll need it for later. Go over here to number 2. Just waiting on them both to finish up. So number 2's booted up. It's got the same management interface that we configured for 01, but if you go back and look at the desktop, 02 can't have the same one, obviously. It's got to have a different one, and we're going to give it 129. So go back to number 2, I'm going to press number 1. I need interface 1, the management. I don't need to delete it. Don't need to reset it. I don't need it for DHCP. You need to configure IP4. Interface name is still management. You can just press enter and accept the default suggestion that it gives you of MGT. The IP version 4 address is going to change. It's going to be 192.168.30.129. 30.129. It's still going to be 24, so you can just press enter. Still don't need IP6, so press no. It's going to restart that interface. Come over here, make sure we can ping it. Change this to a 9, and you can talk to it. So minimize that. This one now has both interfaces set up. You can see how they're already starting to stack differently than in VMware. So we'll go in here and we'll press 11 to shut it down because we need to add another interface. Shut down, so we're going to edit the settings, go to add, and network adapter, next. We are going to add the replication network. It's host only. Connect it, power on, and finish. Press OK. power it back on. So while it's powering on over here, number 2 has got its management interface now. Don't remember if we gave it its second one or not, so let's go check its settings. We did. It's got its data network on there, so we're going to press number 1. Its interface number 2. We don't need to reset it. Don't need DHCP. We need IP4. Interface name is going to be data. So let's check and see what the data network is. FreeNAS 02 Delta. Data network is 129 on the 172.16.30. So go back to number 2, 172.16.30.129. It's a 24-bit network. Don't need 6. Let's make sure we can talk to it. 129. It's talking back. So we're going to wait for that to reset. We'll shut it down and add another network interface card for the replication network. Let's go check on FreeNAS 1 Alpha. It's still booting up. Some fun trivia for you guys. FreeNAS uses Nginx. You can see that it's starting it up there. We'll be connecting to its web browser port. At the end of this video, we'll log into it using its Nginx web server. This one's finished adding that network. So we're going to shut it down so we can add the replication interface to it. So this one's back up now, alpha. So we'll go to number 1. This time it's number 3. We don't need to reset it, don't need DHCP, we need IP4. The interface name, I'm going to call it REPL for replication. The address, let's go check that out. 10.130.128. So go back to FreeNAS 1 alpha 10.1.30.128. It's also a 24-bit network. We don't need IP6 still. It's going to reset that network interface. So come over here, do 10.1.30.128, and it's talking back. So while that's resetting, we'll come over here to FreeNAS 02 Delta, add the replication NIC to it. VMNet 2, finish. Okay, power it back on. It's going to take a little while to boot back up again. Doing these one at a time takes a really long time, but to me it's so worth it to not have that confusion. So on alpha, we have our 3 network interfaces now. Your management, your data, and your replication networks. So at this point, we're going to shut it down again. We'll add the hard drives to it. Edit virtual machine settings. So we need hard disks. That's the OS drive. It's got 100 gigs. I'm going to add a new hard disk. SCSI's fine. Create a new disk. I'm going to give each one 5 gigabytes and a single file. I'm just going to make sure that it's putting it with the other drive. You can always go into your File Explorer, go to VDI. This is alpha, and you can see you got the A-0, so that's fine. So we got one drive in there. We need to add another one. SCSI, create a new disk, 5 gigs, single file, next. A-1, finish, add, hard drive, next, SCSI, next, new disk file, next, 5 gigs, single file, next, A-2, finish, add, hard disk, next, SCSI, next, new disk, next, 5 gigs, single file, next, A-3. We're going to do one more. Add a hard disk, next, SCSI, next, new file, 5 gigs, single file, next, A-4. So 0 through 4 will be the disk we use for data. That's 5 drives. Kind of like if you had a SAN going or a NAS, you probably have a couple drives, maybe not 5, but I want to show you all the options that you can do in FreeNAS. So that's what we're going to use. Press OK. Go ahead and power him back on. FreeNAS 2 Delta is finally finished booting up. So I'm going to press number 1 and configure that third interface. You don't need to reset it, don't need DHCP, we need IP4. Interface name is REPL for replication again. It's on the 10.1.30.129 interface. 24 as well. Don't need 6. It's going to restart that. Let's make sure we can talk to him. 9. And it's talking back. So, go ahead and minimize that. Wait for him to reset. We'll shut him down and add those drives to him as well, because they're going to be identical so they can replicate back and forth. You could do them differently, just really need to have the same size of storage on both, so that if you replicate, you're not replicating to a smaller drive and it might fail or some crazy stuff like that. You don't want to be confused by. Just want them to have the same amount of storage. If not, the Delta one might have more. You might have more, and you could do archives and stuff like that. So it's all booted up now. You got all the right addresses. Or it's not booted up, it finished resetting that network. So we're going to shut it down, add those drives to it. So edit virtual machine settings. We need another hard disk because this is the OS one. So we're going to add hard disk, next, SCSI, new virtual disk, 5 gigs, single file, next. Let's go make sure that it wants to do it on the VDI drive. Just press cancel, finish. So we got our first drive of the data drives. Next, 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 5 gigs, single file next, D-0, just kind of odd. What did I give that first one? Oh, it gave it just D. Oh, because we cloned alpha, it named the OS drive with an A, but that's okay because I put it in a folder with the -D, so it's not going to be that confusing. It'll be fine. So this will be D-0, hard disk, next, 5 gigs, single file, next, D-1, so we'll have D through 3 on this one. Hard disk, next, 5 gigs, single file, next, finish. Add, hard disk, next, 5 gigs, single file, next, D-3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drives that we're going to work with. Press OK. Go ahead and power him back on. So FreeNAS 1 alpha is back up by now. So let's go ahead, open a browser. We'll check and see the management interface for him coming from the host is going to be 192.168.30.128. So we'll go to a browser, 192.168.30.128. Press enter, and this is the FreeNAS box. So the username will be root, the password put in as Tor, T-O-O-R, and then log in. We can save it, so I don't have to type it in again. And then this is FreeNAS's new user interface. Your memory usage, your bandwidth, temperatures will be unavailable for a VM because they don't have that hardware. It's virtual hardware, software hardware. You got your load averages, what it's doing all day, CPU usage. I want to come over here and show you storage. This, it shows our 5 drives here. The top one should be the OS drive, and let's see if it's got our network interfaces in here. Yep, it's got the network interfaces. They're all labeled, tells you the addresses. That's all great. That's about as far as we're going to go into the interface on this. Let's go see if Delta's booted up yet. He's still working on it. Alright, looks like he's all booted up. We're going to go to the management interface, 192.168.30.129. So, go back to Chrome. Just going to duplicate this tab. We're going to add in a 9 instead of that 8. Press enter. It's going to load up the second FreeNAS box. It'll be root and Tor, T-O-R. Press log in. We can save that. You get the same dashboard. Go to storage. This sees all of 1 through 5. It's another annoying thing that VMware does not match up with what FreeNAS sees as its disk, but you'll just have to work with it. Network interfaces, it sees the 3 different interfaces that we have. And so that's going to be all for this video. We'll pick up pretty much around here on the second video where we configure the storage. We'll do some RAID and some caching and some spare drives. But if you liked my video, please press the like button. If you want to leave a comment and tell us who you're who you are and what you do all day, that'd be great. I'd love to find out who's watching these, and if these are as interesting as I hope they are. This is just the beginning of a series, so hopefully my series goes somewhere, and I'll see you next time.